Katie Blake sat at her desk in the communication room of the space station Aurora's Edge. The station floated quietly in the darkness between stars, far from Earth and the busy trade routes. Her job was simple but important. She listened for signals from deep space and made sure nothing strange was happening out there. The night shift was always quiet. Most of the crew was sleeping, and the only sounds were the soft hums of machines working. Katie liked these peaceful hours. She could drink her coffee and watch the stars through the big windows, while her computers scanned the empty space around them. Then something changed. All her screens started flashing at once. Red lights blinked everywhere, and loud alarms began to ring. Katie jumped up from her chair, spilling coffee on her uniform. In 15 years of working on space stations, she had never seen anything like this. The main screen showed waves of energy coming from everywhere at once. Every radio frequency, every communication channel, even the old emergency bands that nobody used anymore. They were all carrying the same signal. Katie's hands shook as she tried to understand what was happening. She pressed the button to call Captain Jake Morrison. Within minutes, the captain rushed into the communication room, still putting on his jacket. Behind him came Lieutenant Commander Ryan Carter and Dr. Lisa Webb, the station's language expert. "What do we have, Blake?" Captain Morrison asked. His gray hair was messy from sleep, but his eyes were sharp and alert. "Sir, we're getting a signal on every frequency at the same time," Katie said, pointing at her screens. "It's not human. The pattern is completely different from anything in our databases." Dr. Webb moved to another computer and started working. She was young but very smart, and she knew more about alien languages than anyone else in human space. Her fingers moved quickly over the keyboard as she tried to understand the strange signal. "The structure is old," she said, frowning at her screen. "Very old. I've seen patterns like this before, but only in museum records." Ryan Carter checked the tactical systems, looking for any signs of danger. As the station's defense officer, he was always worried about attacks. "Are we safe? Could this be some kind of weapon?" "I don't think so," Katie said. "It's just a message, but it's being sent with more power than I've ever seen. Whoever is doing this wants to make sure everyone in the galaxy hears it." Dr. Webb suddenly stopped typing. Her face went very pale. "Captain, I think I know what this is. The language pattern matches records from the Zephyrian Empire." The room went completely quiet. Everyone knew about the Zephyrians, but they were just history now. 3,000 years ago, when humans were still stuck on Earth with simple rockets and basic computers, the Zephyrians had come. They were fighting a huge war against someone else, and they needed help. The aliens had given humans some advanced technology in exchange for soldiers to help in their war. Humans had been so amazed by the alien ships and weapons that they thought the Zephyrians were like gods. But then the war ended suddenly, and the aliens disappeared. They left behind empty bases and a promise that they would return someday. "That's impossible," Ryan said. "The Zephyrians vanished 3,000 years ago. Why would they come back now?" Dr. Webb kept working on the translation. "I'm getting pieces of it. It's in an old form of their language, but I can understand some words. Something about a truce ending and judgment." Captain Morrison walked to the big window and looked out at the stars. He had studied the old histories in military school. Back then, humans had been so weak and small. They lived on just one planet and dreamed of reaching the stars. The Zephyrian technology had helped them take their first real steps into space. "Can you get a full translation?" he asked. "Working on it now," Dr. Webb said. Her computer was comparing the signal to old Zephyrian records, trying to fill in the missing pieces. "Got it. The message says, 'The great truce is void. The time of judgment has come. Humanity will face the consequences of its actions. Prepare for war.'" Katie felt cold suddenly. "They're declaring war on us?" "It looks that way," Captain Morrison said. He pressed his communication badge. "All senior officers report to the bridge immediately. Wake up Commander Phillips and get me a direct line to Earth Command." As the other officers hurried away to get ready, Katie stayed at her station, listening to the alien message repeat over and over. She thought about her little sister back on Earth, who was studying to be a teacher. She thought about her parents who grew food on a farm on Mars. None of them knew that after 3,000 years of peace, humanity was about to face its old masters again. But something felt strange about the whole situation. Katie had grown up hearing stories about the mighty Zephyrians and their amazing technology. Her grandfather used to tell her about the old days when humans felt so small and weak compared to the aliens. Now she worked on a space station that could travel between stars in days. Her computer could translate alien languages in minutes. The coffee she was drinking came from plants that grew on a dozen different worlds, carried by ships that crossed the galaxy like it was nothing. Katie looked at her screens again and realized something that made her smile just a little bit. The Zephyrian signal was strong, but the technology behind it seemed old, very old, like something from a museum. She wondered if the aliens knew how much humans had changed in 3,000 years. She wondered if they were going to be very surprised when they found out. Captain Amy Foster stood on the bridge of her ship, the horizon's dawn, watching the empty space ahead. 3 days had passed since the alien message, and now strange ships were appearing at the edge of human space. The Zephyrians had finally come back. Amy was not worried. She had been flying ships between the stars for 20 years, and she had seen many strange things. Her crew was good, and her ship was one of the newest exploration vessels in the human fleet. If the aliens wanted to talk, she would listen. If they wanted to fight, well, that would be their mistake. "Captain, we're getting movement on the sensors," said Navigator Chris Morgan from his station. He was young but very skilled, and he could read space charts better than anyone Amy knew. 5 ships, maybe 6. They're big, but they're moving. Slowly, Engineer Pete Davis looked up from his controls. "Their engine signatures are weird, Captain. The power output is low for ships that size. Either they're trying to hide their real strength or their technology is not as good as it looks." Amy nodded. "What do you think, Colonel Reed?" Marine Colonel Tony Reed was standing near the back of the bridge, wearing his combat armor even, though they were not expecting a fight. He was the kind of soldier who always prepared for trouble. "I think we should be careful, but not scared. If these are the same Zephyrians from the old stories, they remember humans as weak and primitive. They might not be ready for what we've become." The alien ships came closer, and Amy could see them clearly now on the main screen. They were huge, much bigger than her ship, with strange curved shapes and dark metal hulls. They looked powerful and scary, exactly like the ships in the old history books. But Amy noticed something that the history books had never mentioned. The alien ships were moving in straight lines like they could not change direction quickly. Their weapons were visible on the outside of their hulls, big and obvious. Most importantly, they were using old-style radio signals to communicate with each other, the kind that any human child could intercept and decode. "They're sending us a message," Chris said. "Text only, no video." "Put it on the screen," Amy ordered. The message appeared in simple English. "Human vessel, you will stop, and prepare to be boarded. The Zephyrian Empire has returned to reclaim what belongs to us. Your species will serve as before or face destruction." Amy looked around at her crew. Pete was trying not to laugh. Chris was shaking his head in amazement. Even Colonel Reed was smiling behind his helmet. "Send a reply," Amy said. "Tell them we're happy to meet with them, but nobody is boarding our ship without permission. Suggest we meet on neutral ground." The alien reply came back quickly. "You will obey. Human ships are slow and weak. Human weapons are primitive. We have plasma cannons that can destroy planets." This time Pete could not hold back his laughter. "Plasma cannons? Captain, my engineering scanner shows their weapons are running on fusion power. We stopped using fusion weapons 50 years ago because they were too weak." Amy opened a channel to Earth Command and quickly explained the situation. Within an hour, she received new orders. Earth wanted her to arrange a formal meeting with the aliens. They would send a diplomatic team to find out what the Zephyrians really wanted. But first, the aliens wanted to show off their power. The largest Zephyrian ship moved away from the others and pointed its weapons at a small asteroid. Amy watched as bright green energy beams shot out and hit the rock. The asteroid cracked and broke apart, floating away in pieces. "Impressive," Colonel Reed said, but his voice was flat. Pete, what would our main cannon do to that same asteroid? Pete checked his instruments. Our particle beam would have turned it into dust, sir. And we could have done it from twice the distance. The Zephyrian commander sent another message. You have seen our power. Your crude nuclear rockets and chemical weapons cannot match us. Surrender now, and we will be merciful. Amy almost felt sorry for them. Nuclear rockets? Chemical weapons? Humans had moved beyond those technologies when her grandmother was young. Modern human ships used gravity drives that could bend space itself. Their weapons could slice through matter at the atomic level. Open a channel, Amy said. Let me talk to their commander directly. The main screen changed, and for the first time in 3,000 years, a human looked at a Zephyrian face to face. The alien commander was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and large dark eyes. He wore elaborate armor covered with symbols and medals. I am War Commander Thex High of the Zephyrian Empire, the alien said. His voice was proud and commanding. You will identify yourself, human. Captain Amy Foster of the Terran Federation, Amy replied politely. Welcome back to human space. It's been a long time. Too long, Thex High said. We have returned to restore order. Your species has grown wild and uncontrolled in our absence. But do not worry. We will teach you discipline again. Amy kept her face calm, but inside she was amazed. The alien really believed that humans were still the same primitive people they had left behind. He had no idea that human space now covered thousands of star systems, that human technology was advancing every day, that human ships could cross the galaxy in weeks. We've changed quite a bit since you left, Amy said carefully. Perhaps we should arrange a proper meeting to discuss the situation. There is nothing to discuss, Thex High replied. You will submit to our authority or we will take control by force. We give you one rotation of your planet to decide. The channel closed, and the Zephyrian ships moved away to wait for humanity's answer. Amy looked at her crew. Well, what do you think? I think they're about to get the biggest surprise in galactic history, Colonel Reed said. Amy smiled and sent a message to Earth Command. The aliens are exactly what we expected. Recommend we show them what humanity has become. Supreme War Commander Velthara stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the fleet of 300 Zephyrian warships move toward human space. She felt proud and confident. The humans had refused to surrender, just as she had expected. Primitive species always needed to learn lessons the hard way. Her fleet was the largest the Zephyrian Empire had sent to battle in 500 years. Each ship carried plasma cannons, shield generators, and enough firepower to destroy entire cities. The humans would see this mighty force and realize how foolish they had been to resist. War Commander, we are detecting human ships ahead, reported her tactical officer. Only 12 vessels. They appear to be waiting for us. Velthara laughed. 12 ships against 300? These humans are even more stupid than our record suggested. Prepare all weapons. We will destroy them quickly and move on to their planets. But as the Zephyrian fleet got closer, something seemed wrong. The human ships were not running away. They were not calling for help. They were just sitting there waiting as if 12 ships could somehow fight against 300. Admiral Kevin Brooks sat calmly in his command chair aboard the Starforge, watching the alien fleet approach. His ship was beautiful and deadly, with smooth white hull that seemed to glow with inner light. Around him, 11 other human warships waited in perfect formation. Admiral, the defense grid is ready, reported Commander Beth Palmer from her station. All platforms are armed and locked onto targets. Kevin nodded. The stellar defense grid was humanity's greatest achievement in military technology. Thousands of automated platforms hidden throughout space, each one more powerful than the largest Zephyrian ship. The aliens had no idea they were flying into the most dangerous trap in the galaxy. Sir, the aliens are sending a message, said the communications officer. They're demanding our immediate surrender. Tell them we appreciate their concern, but we'll have to decline, Kevin said with a slight smile. The first shots came from the Zephyrian fleet. Bright green plasma beams reached across space toward the human ships. Kevin watched them come, knowing that his shields could absorb 10 times that much energy without even warming up. The plasma bolts hit the human ships and simply disappeared, absorbed by force fields that the aliens could not even see. Not one human vessel was damaged. "Their turn is over," Kevin said quietly. "Begin the demonstration." The Starforge fired a single shot from its main particle cannon. The beam was so thin it was almost invisible, but when it touched the lead Zephyrian ship, the massive vessel simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, the next moment there was only empty space and a small cloud of atoms. Velthara stared at her screens in shock. Her flagship, the pride of the Zephyrian Navy, had been destroyed by a weapon she could not even detect. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "War Commander, we're getting energy readings from all around us," her sensor officer reported, his voice shaking with fear. "There are thousands of hidden platforms in this area. They're all targeting us." That was when the defense grid revealed itself. All around the Zephyrian fleet, space filled with light as the hidden platforms powered up their weapons. Each platform was small, no bigger than a fighter craft, but together they formed a web of destruction that surrounded the aliens completely. The platforms opened fire all at once. Streams of coherent energy reached out from every direction, touching Zephyrian ships with beams that cut through their armor like it was paper. Within seconds, 50 alien vessels were gone. "Retreat!" Velthara screamed. "All ships retreat immediately." But there was nowhere to run. The defense platforms had surrounded them completely, and human ships were blocking every escape route. The Zephyrian fleet, which had seemed so powerful just minutes before, was being destroyed piece by piece. Captain Dan Phillips, commanding one of the human cruisers, watched the battle from his bridge. His ship had not even fired a shot yet. The defense grid was handling everything perfectly, just as it had been designed to do. "Sir, should we assist?" asked his weapons officer. "No need," Dan replied. "Let the grid do its work. We're just here to make sure none of them escape." The Zephyrians tried to fight back, but their weapons were useless. Their plasma cannons could not penetrate human shields. Their targeting systems could not lock onto human ships that moved too fast to track. Even their heaviest warships were being destroyed by single shots from the defense platforms. In desperation, Velthara ordered her remaining ships to use their ultimate weapon. Deep in the hold of her command ship was a planet-killer device, a weapon so powerful it could crack the crust of a world and turn it into a dead rock. "Activate the World Breaker," she commanded. "If we cannot conquer them, we will destroy them all." The massive weapon powered up, drawing energy from the ship's main reactor. This was technology from the height of Zephyrian civilization, a weapon that had ended wars and destroyed entire species. Surely nothing could stand against it. The World Breaker fired, sending a beam of pure destruction toward the nearest defense platform. The energy was enough to shatter mountains and boil oceans. Commander Julie Adams, controlling the platform from her station aboard Shield Wall, simply pressed a button. The platform's deflector field activated, and the planet-killing beam bounced off like light from a mirror. The redirected energy struck 3 Zephyrian ships, destroying them instantly. "Well, that was disappointing," Julie said to her crew. "I was hoping their ultimate weapon would at least be impressive." The battle was over in less than an hour. Of the 300 Zephyrian ships that had entered human space, only a dozen survived, and those only because the humans let them escape. Velthara's mighty fleet had been reduced to wreckage and memories. As news of the victory spread through human space, people went back to their normal lives. Children played in parks while their parents discussed the pest problem with mild annoyance. On Earth, the stock market went up because the brief excitement was over. Kevin Brooks looked at the floating debris where the Zephyrian fleet had been, and felt almost sad. These aliens had once seemed like gods to humanity. Now they were just another species that had made the mistake of threatening people who had spent 3,000 years learning how to fight. General Matt Thompson stood in the war room on Earth, looking at the big map that showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked Zephyrian worlds, while blue dots showed human colonies. 3 weeks had passed since the first battle, and everything had changed. "Sir, Captain Johnson is reporting success at the Kepler system, said his aide, Colonel Lisa Martinez. The Zephyrian base there has been captured with no human casualties. Matt nodded. The war had become something nobody expected. Instead of defending human space from alien invaders, human forces were now chasing the Zephyrians back to their own territory. What had started as an alien invasion was turning into the complete collapse of their empire. Any word from Admiral Rodriguez? Matt asked. She's 3 systems deep into Zephyrian space, Lisa replied. Her fleet has liberated 2 slave worlds and captured a major supply depot. The aliens are retreating faster than we can follow them, far away. In the darkness between stars, Captain Nick Johnson guided his ship through space like a ghost. The Ghost Protocol was humanity's newest stealth destroyer, invisible to any sensors the Zephyrians possessed. His crew moved silently through the ship, gathering information that would help human forces plan their next moves. Captain, we're picking up radio chatter from the planet below, whispered Lieutenant Grace Miller, the ship's intelligence officer. It sounds like they're planning to evacuate their command center. Nick looked at the planet on his screen. It was one of the Zephyrians' oldest colonies, a world they had controlled for thousands of years. Now they were running away from it because a single human ship was nearby. Chief Clark, how long before they notice us? Nick asked. Chief Engineer. Rob Clark checked his instruments. Sir, their sensors are so old they couldn't detect us if we were sitting on their landing pad. We could stay here for weeks without being seen. The truth was becoming clear to everyone involved in the war. The Zephyrian Empire was not just losing battles, it was falling apart completely. Their technology was ancient, their ships were slow, and their communication systems were so primitive that human forces knew about Zephyrian plans before the aliens' own commanders did. Nick activated his ship's quantum communicator and sent a message to Earth. The signal would travel instantly across the galaxy, reaching headquarters in less than a second. Meanwhile, the Zephyrians were still using messenger ships that took weeks to carry information between stars. On Earth, Dr. Paul Martinez was studying captured Zephyrian prisoners in his research facility. As humanity's leading expert on alien psychology, he had been trying to understand why the aliens had started this war. They're not evil, he explained to General Thompson during their daily briefing. They're desperate. Their empire has been dying for centuries, maybe longer. They started this war because they thought conquering humanity would give them new strength. But why now? Matt asked. Why wait 3,000 years? Paul pulled up charts on his computer screen. Because 3,000 years ago, they were still strong enough to fight their own battles. Now they're weak, and they remembered the humans who once served them. They thought we would be easy to defeat. The irony was painful. The Zephyrians had come looking for the primitive humans they remembered, hoping to use them as soldiers again. Instead, they had found a species that had grown beyond their wildest imagination. Meanwhile, Commander Sarah Williams was leading liberation, missions on worlds that had been under Zephyrian control for millennia. These planets were home to dozens of different alien species, all of whom had been enslaved by the Empire. Captain, the locals are celebrating in the streets, reported her communications officer as they landed on yet another liberated world. They're calling us heroes. Sarah felt uncomfortable with the praise. Human forces were not trying to be heroes. They were just cleaning up a mess. But to the species that had lived under Zephyrian rule, the humans looked like saviors from the stars. The freed aliens were amazed by human technology. They had thought the Zephyrians were the most advanced species in the galaxy, but human equipment made Zephyrian technology look like ancient artifacts. How did you become so powerful? Asked one of the local leaders, a being that looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird. Sarah tried to explain. We never stopped growing. We never stopped learning. Every year we made our ships faster, our weapons stronger, our technology better. We spent 3,000 years preparing for whatever might come. The alien leader tilted his head in confusion. But the Zephyrians told us they were the masters of the galaxy. They said no one could challenge them. They believed their own lies, Sarah said sadly. They stopped growing, stopped learning, stopped changing. They became weak while telling themselves they were strong. Back in Zephyrian space, Supreme War Commander Velthara sat in her command bunker, surrounded by the last remnants of her once mighty fleet. Reports came in every hour, each one worse than the last. Human forces were everywhere, moving through Zephyrian territory like they owned it. War Commander, "We have lost contact with the Sigma sector," reported her aide, his voice shaking with fear. "Human ships have been seen near our oldest colonies." Velthara stared at the tactical display, watching red dots disappear one by one as human forces advanced. In just 1 month, the Zephyrian Empire had lost more territory than it had gained. In the previous 1,000 years. "How many ships do we have left?" she asked quietly. "Less than 50, War Commander. The humans have destroyed or captured everything else." Velthara closed her eyes and tried to understand what had happened. Her empire had ruled the galaxy when humans were still throwing rocks at each other. They had possessed technology that seemed like magic to primitive species. They had been gods among the stars. Now they were refugees in their own space, running from the very species they had once looked down upon. "Send a message to the human fleet," she said finally. "Tell them we wish to discuss surrender terms." Her aide stared at her in shock. "War Commander, surely you don't mean—" "I mean exactly what I said," Velthara replied. "This war is over. We lost before it even began. Now we must hope the humans are more merciful than we ever were." Admiral Eric Stone stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the last Zephyrian stronghold. The planet below had once been the capital of a mighty empire that ruled half the galaxy. Now it was just another world waiting to be liberated. "Sir, we're receiving a surrender signal from the surface," reported his communications officer. "Supreme War Commander Velthara is requesting a meeting." Eric nodded slowly. The war was finally over. It had lasted only 2 months, but in that time, the entire Zephyrian Empire had collapsed. Their fleets were destroyed, their colonies were freed, and their leaders were hiding in bunkers hoping for mercy. "Tell her we'll meet on neutral ground," Eric said. "Prepare a shuttle." On Earth, President Rachel Johnson was preparing for the most important speech of her career. In a few hours, she would address representatives from dozens of worlds that had been freed from Zephyrian control. The galaxy was watching to see what humanity would do with its newfound power. Rachel stood in her office looking out at the city of New Geneva. 3,000 years ago, this had been empty land. Now it was the capital of human space, a place where beings from 100 different worlds came to trade, learn, and live in peace. "Madam President, the delegates are ready," said her aide. "The council chamber is full." Rachel took a deep breath and walked to the great hall. Inside, she saw faces she had never imagined when she was young. There were the bird-like HFY, who had been enslaved for 2,000 years. The crystal beings called the Vorth, who communicated through light and sound. The peaceful Mirtan, who looked like walking plants but were among the smartest species in the galaxy. And in the back, looking small and defeated, sat the surviving Zephyrian leaders. "Friends," Rachel began, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "2 months ago we faced a choice. An old enemy had returned, demanding that we bow down to them as our ancestors once did. They expected to find the same weak, primitive humans they remembered from 3,000 years ago." She paused, looking around the room. They were wrong. They found something they had never seen before, a species that never stopped growing, never stopped learning, never stopped reaching for something better. The delegates listened carefully. Many of them had lived their entire lives under Zephyrian rule, never believing that freedom was possible. "But today, we face a more important choice," Rachel continued. "We have the power to destroy our enemies completely. We could wipe out every Zephyrian world, every ship, every trace of their civilization. Many species have done this when they won great victories." She looked directly at the Zephyrian delegates. "We will not do this. We are not like the empires of the past. We do not conquer to destroy. We grow to build." In the ruins of the Zephyrian capital, Dr. Jennifer Clark was working with former enemy scientists to plan refugee camps. The Zephyrians who had once commanded star fleets were now learning to farm and build simple homes under human protection. "Doctor, we do not understand," said one of the Zephyrian scientists. "We attacked your people. We tried to enslave you, again. Why do you help us?" Jennifer looked up from her planning charts. "Because that's what we do. We help people who need help, even if they used to be our enemies. Especially if they used to be our enemies." The Zephyrian scientist seemed confused. "But we are defeated, we are weak, you gain nothing by helping us." "We gain everything," Jennifer replied. "We gain neighbors instead of enemies. We gain friends instead of slaves. We gain a galaxy where everyone can grow and learn together." Meanwhile, Captain Megan Brooks was overseeing the integration of former Zephyrian worlds into the new galactic community. Her job was to make sure that the transition was peaceful and that everyone had what they needed to start new lives. "Captain, the Altair colony is requesting teachers," reported her aide. "They want to learn human farming techniques." "Send them our best agricultural experts," Megan said, "and ask if they have anything they can teach us in return. Every species knows something we don't." This was the new way of thinking that had made humanity great. Instead of taking from others, they shared with others. Instead of ruling through fear, they led through example. 6 months after the war ended, Captain Alex Turner was attending the first meeting of the new Galactic Council. Representatives from 200 worlds had come together to create a government, based on cooperation instead of conquest. "The chair recognizes the delegate from Earth," announced the council speaker. Alex stood up, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. "Thank you. I want to talk about our future together. For too long this galaxy has been ruled by fear. The strong have crushed the weak and everyone has suffered for it." He looked around the vast hall, seeing faces from across the galaxy. "Humanity offers a different path. We propose a confederation where every world has a voice, where every species can contribute their knowledge, where no one is enslaved and no one is left behind." The vote was unanimous. Even the Zephyrian delegates, now representing the refugee camps where their people were learning to live in peace, voted yes. Later that day, Alex sent a message to Katie Blake, who was now the commander of the Aurora's Edge monitoring station where the whole adventure had begun. "Katie, you'll be pleased to know that we just received first contact from a species in the Andromeda sector. They seem friendly. Captain Morris is taking them for dinner tomorrow to discuss trade agreements." Katie smiled as she read the message. She was sitting in the same chair where she had first heard the Zephyrian surrender demand 6 months ago. Now her screen showed peaceful traffic from dozens of worlds, all working together to build something better. She looked out at the stars and thought about how much had changed. The galaxy was no longer a place of fear and conquest. It was becoming something new. A community where everyone could grow, learn, and reach for the stars together. Her computer chimed with another message. This time it was from an exploration ship at the edge of known space. "Found something interesting out here," the message read. "Looks like the ruins of an ancient civilization. Sending archaeological team. This could be big." Katie filed the report and smiled. In the new galaxy humanity had helped create, even mysteries were just opportunities to learn something new. The age of conquest was over. The age of discovery had begun, and somewhere in the distance new signals were coming from unknown worlds, carrying messages of friendship from species that had never known war. The galaxy was becoming a place where anyone could reach for the stars and find friends waiting among them.